Welcome, IFBB Figure Pro, third place at the Texas Pro 2024. Woo, 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 woo. And my coach, on pause right now while I figure out grad school, but soon to be coaching yet again, Rachel Sedwick. How are you doing?
I am doing great. That was an awesome intro. I've never had an intro like that. That was great.
Thanks so much. I've been sitting for a good portion of the day, so the energy is just bubbling up inside of me.
Yeah, you're like ready to do creative shit.
Yeah, and excited to talk to you. It almost feels wrong because it's not like a time that I'm checking in. So I'm like, oh my God, I get to like monopolize this much of Rachel's time.
Hey, like people, you never know until you ask. And you asked, and I'm like, I'm always up to be on a podcast. So yeah, I love it.
Oh my
I'm
God,
here for it.
I'm so excited. Well, now that you've said that, tell us where we can find you.
So I do have a podcast called the Refined Strength Podcast, named for my business, and that is on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and then it's also on YouTube as well if you want to watch me like hand talk or look at my plant that's thriving. I've actually had this plant, for those of you watching, since 2021, I think, and it's 2025 right now. Like that's the oldest plant I got.
That's super impressive. How are you keeping it alive? Tell the folks what kind of plant it is.
You know, I don't know what kind of plant it is. I think I got it at Kroger, and
Okay.
and it's just been like chilling. I kept it alive. It was one of those things like I bought for myself to like see if I could keep a plant alive. And it was when I was like in a relationship where I just felt like I wasn't being nourished. So I needed to like nourish a plant myself. And the plant lasted, the guy didn't. And here I am in my house, and I have 2 other plants in here that are alive and well. So yeah. This right here, though, like in my Marcus Aurelius vase, he's not real. That's just a thing from Target. So,
Just for show.
yeah, just for show.
Okay, got it. So while the relationship was on life support, you needed to breathe life into something else.
Yeah, so that's where I got him. So, and he just chills in here. I got him a new pot because the dogs broke the old pot because they get a little excited in here sometimes. So they knocked over my little table, and the pot broke. But I like this new pot. It's pretty cool. So
Dogs are so naughty. That's so cute.
They're all sleeping right now. One of them might come up during this podcast. We'll see.
How many dogs do you have?
We have 3 dogs between me and Austin. So my dog is Louie. He's the pit bull. He's the youngest. And then the middle child is Jax. He's a golden doodle. And he is probably like 4, is about to be 4. And then Flex is the mini Aussie blue heeler. He's the smallest, but he's the oldest, and he's like the alpha dog. So.
Oh my God. I love dogs. As you know, I have 3 dogs too. And I'm always covered in hair. Oh my God. Okay. Well, I could talk about dogs for hours. This morning I saw a video that my friend sent me of someone laying on the floor and then taking bites of an apple and then spitting it up into the dog's mouth, and the dog was catching it. So we tried, but the launching was more difficult than we anticipated. So we're going to try with the other 2 dogs later. But anyway, Rachel, I have a few different sections on my outline for you, and the first one is long. So let's talk about it first. Yeah. This is the coaching question section. So I, as someone who always has a coach, who has a coach, I have questions about how coaches are able to balance all of these things, how they choose their athletes, how they decide to put athletes in shows, the reasons why, all that kind of stuff. So let's first talk about what are some things that clients overcomplicate?
That's a good question. They overcomplicate everything. So it really just depends on the person, and it depends is like an answer coaches love to give to everything, but it's because it does depend. It depends on the person and like what their weaknesses are, what their fears are. I feel like that's where overcomplicating and overthinking comes from, is like, what do you fear the most? So like if someone really fears gaining weight, they're usually overcomplicating what the scale means. And so if they fear, or if they fear losing, they overcomplicate like their timeline for their shows, or, you know, maybe they overcomplicate peaking or something like that. And so what, like, on the day-to-day, week-to-week things that I see clients complicate, it's things like the scale, it's their clothing fitting, it's packing their food when they're traveling. You know, what do I do? I'm traveling. How do I stay on track? Well, you just pack your food. That's it. So, like, don't overcomplicate it. They'll overcomplicate, like, what do I do with a free meal? Do I skip my meal? Do I track my free meal? Like, what do I do with it? And the answer is, like, don't overcomplicate it. Just have the free meal and move the fuck on. So that's generally, like, it really just depends on the person. And it's usually something based around something they fear, and sometimes they fear it because of either what a past coach has said to them, what they believe because of something some influencer says or does, or what other clients and people around them do, or maybe they have a history of disordered eating or something like that. And so they fear going back to old mindsets. I've been seeing that one come up quite a bit lately, is people knowing and being aware of the fact that they are very different than they were like a year ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago, but they still fear a part of that person coming back, or like they fear being able to lose the weight again if they're in a building phase. But it's like, you can always lose the weight again. And so you don't need to fear that. The scale will always go up if it's coming down. It'll always come down if it's going up. So there's really no need to fear anything, especially when it comes to bodybuilding, especially when you have a coach. Because I always tell my clients, like, it's my job to worry about something like your scale weight or what your body is doing or whatever. It's your job to execute the plan, to communicate what you're going through, and to manage your stress and your emotions around all of that.
That makes so much sense. I didn't think about how it's going to come down to what clients often fear most. Mm-hmm. And what you're saying is so right, that, like, I had a friend who told me that I'm just the monkey pushing the buttons. So I always, like, envision, like, a little crouching monkey being, like, walking, eating enough protein today. And that really helped. And speaking from experience with you, yeah, you're great at, like, getting on your Loom video response and talking for like 5 minutes about one sentence that I said to help kind of deprogram the fear that I have. Nobody else has put into me. I've just, like, put it on myself. Yeah. So yeah, that's huge. And yeah, coming from old coaching experiences where you have to deprogram, like, things that they were taught by them. Is that something, like, how do you work to overcome that with your clients?
Like, overcoming what past coaches have programmed?
Yeah, like, how do you get them past it so they aren't, like, dwelling on something every single week?
I mean, I'm just really real with my clients. I'm honest with them, and I'm honest with them, like, from the very first call with them. And so if someone tells me, like, this is everything about me, these are my goals, this is what I've had in the past, I basically tell them, like, all right, well, you have the choice. If you have this goal and you want to move forward towards that goal, you got to trust me. And I'm going to give you the evidence on why you can trust me. It's in the social proof that I show with my clients. You can talk to my clients and hear how they feel about things and how they're doing. You can, and how they feel about me and our work together. But you can also just listen and ask yourself more questions. And a lot of what I do in, like, my Loom videos when I check in with clients and, like, when I do calls with them is, like, I'm asking them questions to help them kind of self-discover, because generally when we're up against something that is in our own mind, we're our own worst enemy with it. And so we're the ones that are, like, telling ourselves we can't do something or something is wrong or whatever because of whether it's in us or someone else told us that. And so if we're being asked the question, whether it's from someone else or ourselves, we have the chance to actually answer honestly, instead of just, like, always believing one thing and being, like, kind of subjective about everything. And so it's about being more objective and not judging things and yourself as much. It's like what really happened and how do we overcome it, or how do we move forward? So if a coach before led you to believe that a certain drug is bad, or led you to believe that you don't deserve this type of food, or you have to do something this way, or whatever it is. Like, I try to ask questions just kind of to unpack that and see, like, well, why do they believe this? And most of the time, if someone's coming from another coach, they had a bad experience with that coach, so they don't really have a whole lot of trouble getting over what that coach told them, because they know they couldn't trust that coach. That's why they're not with that coach. Yeah. So that I don't have as much trouble with, unless I start seeing something come up, like someone being afraid to ask questions. It's like, that's because their last coach would never answer questions, or would be, shitty to them if they ask questions,
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. And that kind of, you make a good point about if they know that their last coach wasn't a great fit, then they aren't carrying much of that with them. What I notice with my personal training clients is that they will have done a diet or something that worked for them in the past. So it's more deprogramming on like why that diet's not going to work again.
Yeah, why? Yes, you there's a difference between being self-aware about what your body is doing and how it's feeling, and I know my body and I know what works best for me. Well, if you did, you would be where you want to be by now. So that's why you have a coach, is to deprogram some of that stuff and help you truly get to know your body, which we do by tracking data and looking at feedback, not only the stats on the weight and the pictures, but like all biofeedback markers. And it's also why we talk about real shit in our lives going on, because that stuff all matters too.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you also touch on something important with you're talking about motivational interviewing, basically, like getting someone to come to their own conclusion. Because if somebody is in a relationship where their boyfriend called them stupid or something, you just want to be like, obviously break up with them. They just basically told you what to do. But if you tell someone that, it doesn't matter, because they have not come to that decision themselves. They have an introspect on why it's not okay to be called that by your partner or something like that. So
you can ask that person, does this person really make you happy? Do they make you feel safe? Do they make you feel more like you? Yeah. And if you answer no to all three of those questions, you kind of know your answer. They're not the person for you.
Exactly. Yeah. So when did you come to that realization as a coach, or did you go in already having that skill?
The skill of just that interviewing and that questioning? Yeah. No, I mean, so I started coaching in actually coaching people online in 2018 or 2019, somewhere around there. I forget when my first actual client was, but it was somewhere around there. And I got my pro card in 2017. I had been a personal trainer before getting my pro card, left that to do gym management for a while, and then was in gym management when I was starting to get people asking me more questions, because I had my pro card and stuff like that. And I was like, well, maybe I'll take on a few clients for free or for cheap, just online. Mm-hmm. And so I started helping people do that. But then when I really feel like I became a coach was in 2021, when I joined Pro Physique as a coach and started working more full time. So within 3 months of starting with them, I quit my corporate job and had I think 40 clients at that time. And it's when you get a volume like that, that's when you start to really learn shit the hard way too, which is you can't just give someone a plan and expect them to make all the results. There's more work that has to be done on your end. And part of that is yes, it's learning the more technical sides of coaching and getting just better educated, but it's also learning more how to communicate, more how to listen to people and understand people and psychology a little bit more. So honestly, in that time, 2021 was a big transformative year for me in more than just coaching. I was starting to read a lot more and understand a lot more about just the human condition and why people are the way we are. I went through my divorce that year, and I really started to just get to know myself more. And so I think just in the process of learning who I was more and really becoming who I was throughout the next few years too, that's when as that happened, I also got to become a better coach and a better person to like lead others because of just knowing myself more. Because if I know myself more, I can then be more open to know how other people work too. And so, so yeah, you can just learn so much more about people and about like how the brain works too when you listen to podcasts and read, and you just like have real conversations with people, not just surface level conversations with people. So yeah, it took like losing clients and not knowing why, and then just like realizing like, okay, once I started asking for more feedback from people, even though it's hard to hear sometimes as a coach, I would like get such better. Some people, they don't give you feedback. They're just like, I'm done, cancel me, I'm out the door, and they move on. But some people would give me really good negative feedback or constructive feedback that helped me learn and helped me grow. So then I just started asking for that more often from my clients, even if they weren't leaving me. And that has helped me a lot over time, because now my clients know that they can ask me a question anytime and not feel worried that I'm gonna freak out about it or like that I'm gonna be offended or something like that. Like they can give me feedback and be like, hey, I feel like we're not on the same page, can we do this or whatever. And there's still some people that are like not self-aware and emotionally mature enough to do that, but most of my clients have gotten to that place where they are, and I get more clients who are already in that place of wanting that and wanting a coach who is open to feedback. So yeah, that's I think the answer that I have for that is just like
You've more
being
than
really
answered
open and aware, open to learning and open to feedback. That has helped me be a better coach in terms of like how I relate to people, how I figure them out and figure out like what is going to drive them to be their best.
Yeah, you said a lot. I mean, first of all, 40 clients is a lot to just start with. Like, that's a
Well,
lot
okay, I
of
didn't
people.
start like that.
Okay.
I started with like the 5 that I had by myself.
Okay.
And then, we turned it on. I started with Pro Physique, and how they had it functioning back then is like you would get sent leads, and then it's your job to try to close them and bring them on as your client. And so
Okay.
then, so I grew it to 40, and at 40, that's when I was like, oh shit, this is a lot of work. I should quit my job. I'm ready. And so,
Oh, okay. Got it.
because
Got
I
it.
was working a full-time corporate job and doing 40 clients, or having 40 clients. And so that's where I was like, well, I have money saved up. I feel like I'm okay enough at this that I've gotten to 40 clients. So I'm just going to quit and see how it goes. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of how that went.
Okay. Wow. That is absolutely incredible. And then you also brought up something huge, which was you were going through your divorce at the time that you like started being more having coaching be your main thing,
Mm-hmm.
and how when you began to know yourself more, it made you more in tune with your clients. And the reason I think that's so huge is because if we're too scared to look inward and ask ourselves the hard questions, then it's hard to relate to someone who is going through something that we've never considered before or never experienced. When we haven't applied those tools within ourselves, it's like, how would you even know those tools exist when you are helping a client through a difficult situation?
Oh,
Not that
yeah.
you are their therapist, but you need to be able to empathize with your clients.
Yeah, and it's not just the empathy, it's also like the problem solving. So like
Yeah.
for me, like yes, going through what I went through with like divorce, moving out on my own, starting a business basically all at once, that was a lot, and it has taught me a lot, and it helped me relate to a lot of people, and it still does. But it also just like allowed me to see myself through this like problem solving era for myself. And then the more I can listen to clients and listen to what their problems are and why they have the problems, the more I can like help them solve the problems by just offering a fresh, more unbiased perspective.
Yeah.
Where because that I think is missing in a lot of the like coaches that are like really young, who just kind of start coaching right out the gate. Like they do one show and they become a coach, or they become an influencer and then they become a coach. Is like they're the kinds of people that say you have the same 24 hours in the day that everybody else does, and obviously we know that's not true. That's pretty insensitive to the mom of 3 who is working 2 jobs and doesn't have the same time as someone like me who works from home and can make my own schedule and owns my own business, right? So I try not to put myself in someone's shoes. I try to put myself in like, or I try to put, sorry, I don't try to put them in my shoes. I try to put myself in their shoes with their current situation. How would I solve the problem? And that's how I'll help them solve those problems.
Yeah, that's a great, yeah, what a great tactic. I wish more people were like that. The
Me
same
too.
24 hours in a
Yeah.
day, the privilege of it all.
I know,
Who
right? Like,
says that?
must be nice.
Oh, then I will just become a figure pro then. Okay, I wish someone had told me that sooner.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay. Amazing. Amazing. Okay. Okay. Now also, let's go. Okay, I'm moving to another question. I can be kind of abrupt with my transition.
No, I'm rolling with it. I'm quick too. I'm good.
Okay. Okay, next question. How do you Okay, so you're a DJ at a lot of shows obviously. So how do you study the sport to make sure you're staying current with your clients? Cuz you train clients in many divisions, not just figure, which is obviously something you specialize in.
Yeah, so I coach a pretty equal amount of figure to bikini. I have like a handful of wellness clients. I have a couple women's physique clients as well, and a few male competitors. So, um, in terms of how I studied the sport, like I've been competing for 10 years. I've seen it grow so much in that time, right?
Yeah.
Like Miss Figure Olympia back when I first started competing, I think that year it was Nicole Wilkins
Mhm.
and or maybe like that was her last year was 2014. I forget which one, but like I started competing 2015. It was her, it was Aaron Stern, it was that kind of that physique, and then Latoria comes in with her physique and crazy proportions, and then from there it was just like popped off, and then Sid just took over.
Yeah.
And then same thing with like bikini. You got like Ashley Kay and Courtney King in their physiques back then, very much closer to like what Fit Model is today. And now we have, people like Jen Dory and I forget the girl's name that just won the Arnold. I hadn't heard of her before, but
Vanya.
yeah, yeah. So like you get those physiques, and like so the sport is changing. Even wellness has changed a lot since it started in 2020, 2021. But how I stay just like updated and informed is, yes, I do go to shows. So I go to shows in Texas quite a bit if I can, especially if I have clients there competing. But I also go to a lot of shows that I DJ. I randomly picked up the show DJ gig kind of by accident, honestly. I got my pro card in 2017, and I asked my local promoter, Brad and Elaine Craig, if they needed any help at their show, the Emerald Cup, or the Ironman at the time, because they also did the Emerald Cup, and they were like, oh yeah, you can come help out backstage, blah, blah, blah. And so I helped out at Emerald Cup, and then they somehow heard that I used to do theater. And so they were like, oh, she would be perfect for doing the music at our show. And
Those are
so I
so
was,
different. That's
yeah,
hilarious.
yeah. So like Brad took me to lunch one day and asked me like about my experience with like production and theater and stuff like that. And he's like, we really are just, they were not happy with their music guy at the time. And I guess nobody at the time in that area was happy with him. So I picked up Brad and Elaine's show, and then at the Iron Man, I did it. I guess I did okay. And so then I picked up their next show. And then the next year, I picked up the other promoters in the area's shows. So then, that was 2018, 2019. Now, fast forward to 2025, I am going to be doing like 3 shows in a row this spring. I'm about to go to Samson Showdown Wellness Pro show next weekend. I'll have Emerald Cup. I've still been doing that, and then I'm doing the Vegas Natural Pro in May as well. So like I think I did like 13 shows last year, like just DJing. And so generally like Idaho, Washington, and Vegas, those are my promoters that are like they keep bringing me back. But I also did like the Wasatch Warrior a couple years ago. I did the St. Louis Pro. So yeah, I've just been like doing it, and because I get to go to a lot of shows because of that for free, I get to study what's going on stage, and I get to also spend a lot of time with judges. So like I've gotten to know a lot more judges, so I can like share things with them and ask them more questions and ask them like, hey, why did this person win instead of that person or something like that. So that's been a huge benefit to me because like at the end of the day, I don't need the money to go and do this show and travel and stuff like that. But it's such a great opportunity for me to give back to the sport, but also be in the sport in a different capacity and also just like give people the good experience of having a good show. That's important to me too.
Yeah, that's huge. And all because your grandpa used to play keyboards and those show promoters heard about it.
No, it was actually just because like I was a theater nerd growing up and I
Yeah.
acted and did some shows. So yeah, someone heard about it. So
That is, no, that's seriously so cool. And yet another reason to hire Rachel, you're seeing like all the things you just said, but also you have a really great sample of like the different markets for bodybuilding because you're still
mhm,
going to the Emerald Cup, which is in Washington, correct?
mhm. Yeah,
And you said you're going to Idaho, and Texas has like huge shows that
yeah.
Tyler like head judges at all the
Mhm.
time. That's like the birth of when he started doing those show recaps,
Yeah.
one of the Texas pros in 2023, maybe.
Mhm.
So yeah, that is just so fantastic. And that's why when I reached out to you, I wasn't worried about whether you because I don't think you had any bikini pros at the time, so I was, but I like trusted you based on what I'd heard you say, and the exposure you have to the sport like year round. So I
Yeah.
was really excited. Um,
Yeah.
Still am. And okay, great, so amazing. And oh yeah, yeah. Yeah. Oh no, yeah, that was I finished the question. Okay, question answered. Okay, how do you manage your clients' expectations going into shows? And
Mm.
then, kind of piggybacking off this question, I have always wondered like, so sometimes people will go do a show and they aren't like ready by like whatever people's standard is for being ready, but maybe they have other reasons for doing a show. But I always wonder, does you putting an athlete into a show, regardless of what their goal is, are you ever hesitant to put someone in a show that's not quite ready because how it reflects on your business? So my
Mm.
question is like that slash what oh yeah slash managing clients' expectations.
Yeah, those are good questions. And I think honestly, that's probably one of the hardest parts about being a coach that I never really knew go like early on as a coach until I started putting people on stage.
Yeah.
Um, because, especially like from where I started, you look at people coaching and it looks easy and you compete and you are like I was very genetically gifted I think in the beginning and like I rose very fast in terms of like I got my pro card very fast. It was only my fourth show ever. And I like every show like at that point I got better. And so to me, I only knew what I knew. And so I didn't realize how difficult it is sometimes to have people respond differently to different things. And so that was a hard learning lesson to me. I remember I had a client, I think it was 22, and I told her like 6 to 8 weeks out that, we're not going to be ready. And she was very hell bent on doing the show. And she said, nope, I'm doing the show. I wanted to do this show. I think it was around her birthday or something like that. She's like, this is the show that I wanted to do. And it's, in at this time, in this area, whatever, I'm going to do it no matter what. And I was like, okay. Like, I didn't know what to do with that. So I was like, okay, so we'll push and we'll try. And, of course, she didn't do well. And that was really hard.
How far off
I,
were you thinking she was?
I mean, now that I look back, she was like, she needed another like 8 weeks,
Okay.
honestly. But also, like, looking back now, like, that was in 2022, that was 3 years ago. And like, there were things that I could have done better too. I could have started her better. I could have started her prep better. Probably could have done a million things better. But I think any coach looks back on preps that didn't go well and they see stuff like that.
For sure.
There's also obviously things that the client probably could have done better in terms of their like adherence or their mindset and their internal health. That's a big one. Both the mindset and internal health thing, I look at a lot more closely now as a coach than I ever did before. So, but back to the question, like how to manage expectations, I try to do it from the get-go. So I don't even let someone sign up with me and pay me unless they are very clear on our expectations on our timeline. So another example, I had a consult call yesterday, and she hasn't signed up yet, so I don't know if she will or if she ghosts me. Who knows? But to if she did, to each her own. I wish her the best. But she really has the goal of competing this year, but she doesn't know how to track macros. It's March. That's just not going to happen, right? And so, and like, you know, that anybody I tell who has done one show at least knows that that is not going to happen, or at least it's not going to look good. And so unless someone is just like already stage lean and they've been lifting for 10 years and, you know, they're already a professional athlete, they just need to switch into bodybuilding. It's very rare that that's the case. But anyway, so like I set the expectations on that call of like, hey, it's very unlikely that you are going to be ready to do a show this year. So if you were to work with me, this is what I would do instead. This is what I would recommend as from my expert opinion, because this is what I do for a living, which is like start with just a learning phase. Learn how to track macros, learn how to follow a meal plan, learn how to train the way a bodybuilder really needs to train because you haven't been training like that. And then after a few months, like 2 to 3 months, see where your body is at, see if we're at all in a place where we could start a prep, and then go and like, you know, reassess from there and decide. But most likely it's going to be that you need to keep building your metabolism because you don't even know what you're eating right now. It's probably not a lot. And then compete when you're actually going to be ready. Compete when you're actually going to be successful. So I try to set expectations from the get-go of that initial phone call, because I don't want someone signing up with me if they think that A, they're going to coach themselves and just have me be there as a cheerleader. But B, I don't want someone coaching with me if they're going to be unrealistic about their timeline and not listen to me. So, yeah, that would be like how I set expectations. And then it's like, it's the same thing throughout our time together. So like we start with a building phase. I say like, all right, in, 3 to 6 months, we're going to reassess and see how things go. And also look at like the show timelines and things like that. So like any of my clients that are competing this year, I think I have 30 people competing this year, somewhere around there. All of them have either been working with me for years, getting ready to compete this year, or they have been with other coaches and they've transitioned to me because they needed a change and they already knew, they've already been working towards this. So that's just what you have to do as a bodybuilder. If you have big goals of like success in the sport, not just making it a bucket list item, then you do have to plan more hard in advance. I had people just like in December and like November, December of last year that we were game planning for 2026 and talking about the Arnold in 2026. And then we're going to do that show. So it's like the real mature athletes are people who will listen to their coach and let the coach help them set expectations, not just, I want to do this show because it's on my birthday, or I want to do this show because this person's doing this show. It's like, no, I'm doing this show because it is the best show for me to do, but I'm also not married to this show because I might not be ready for it because it's 30 weeks out and I don't know what's going to happen between now and then.
Yeah.
So the other part of the question in terms of like, if I have a client who is doing a show and they're not quite ready, if that reflects on my business, it totally does, right? So that's been a big thing for me, is that like, say I have a client who is pushing really hard on doing a show that I am advising against, I'll straight up tell them like, all right, I don't advise doing this show. I will help you get there as best you can, but I may or may not post anything about this. So Don't expect this to be something I'm excited about or want to promote, because I don't, like, I can't, because that affects my future business. And it's like, it's not about greed or money. It's about like my livelihood.
Yeah.
and it's about my standard and who I want to bring on as clients. So if I want better clients and if I want people that take bodybuilding seriously and are going to respect me as a coach, then I can't be putting people on stage looking out of place. But yeah, it is hard because some people like we put them on stage even though they're not quite ready, and it's because like they really had to do it, and it was like a mental thing, and some people just need to learn the hard way that they got to get up there and kind of suck a little bit and then do what they need to do. So
Yeah.
I've done it before, and like I've even posted people before that I knew were not stage ready, but we competed anyway because of XYZ reason that they had. So I'm not always going to be that like that harsh on that, but yeah, it just depends on the person, and at the end of the day it's also about like how you frame it and things like that. So
Okay. I laugh because I love how straightforward you are. You're like, don't expect me to be excited. I'm not.
I don't say it like that. Like I've literally only said that to like 2 people before, where I've just been like, I really don't want you to do this show, but
Okay.
if you are forcing my hand, then sure, we can do it, but I'm probably not going to post about it. So.
Okay. I think that's important, and yeah, it is your business. That would stress me out as a coach, which is like, why? I mean, earlier I asked, well, let me just check my notes. What did I ask? Things people clients overcomplicate. That's something I would build up in my head, like, So that thing that gives me anxiety when I think about being a coach, having to have that conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough conversation, but anytime I've told a client, hey, we're not going to be ready for the show, I suggest pushing it out, and they have either accepted that and pushed it out, or they have decided to pull out of prep. It's always ended well. Whether that means they got a better showing and they dropped a lot of stress, or they left coaching and then they found out they really weren't meant for bodybuilding anyway. I see that as a good thing as well. And it sucks not achieving what you set out to do, but that doesn't mean you gave up. It means that you pivoted in a way that will aligned with where your body was heading and where your mind was at.
Pivoting. Ugh, love that you said that. My friend Kelly also mentions a pivot. When I propose a catastrophe, what I view as a catastrophic scenario,
Yeah.
she just says, we're going to pivot. So I love that a
Pivoting
very
is
grounding word.
important.
Okay, next question. How do you, okay, I just asked that question. Common client mistakes. Common client mistakes. So that could be, actually, no, I have a question. I want to go back. You said everyone responds to prep differently. Or responds to things differently. Were you saying, was it just like an all encompassing, like people respond to the diet itself differently, or like the emotions through prep differently? It was the first example you were giving.
Honestly, I don't know, but like, yes, everyone responds to everything differently. And so, people, a big part of that, like the root of that is that people respond to stress differently than others. So, and like, I've seen that happen in my own body in different ways over the 10 years that I've competed. So I think that's why, like, right now, I feel like I'm going to keep growing and I'm going to keep getting better, but I feel like I'm truly at just like the top of my game in that I have been through so much myself, both as a successful competitor and to an unsuccessful competitor to then a successful competitor again. And so now that I've gone through that like metamorphosis, it's cool to see the way that I can like help other clients see that. And I've also seen it in my own clients. Like I've been with many of my clients for years now. And so I know their bodies so well, and I know what they used to stress about versus what they stress about now. And so, so yeah, it's just that's a big part of how people respond is just your stress, but it's also your internal health too. And like what things look like in blood work on just like various tests, what your biofeedback looks like. I'll regularly tell people like, say someone I'm working with was planning on starting prep this year, but then a bunch of life shit happens, and there's like I know that if that crazy of life shit is happening, it's not the time to prep, you know? Just like, don't take it as a loss. Take it as this is the sign from whatever you believe in to slow the fuck down and just focus on yourself.
Love that.
Because prepping when you have a toxic work environment, a toxic partner, unhealthy anything, if you are not super responsive to dieting one way or another, like, you're just not going to have a good year if you try to prep. It's going to be way worse. So.
You're so right. You're so right. I just had a nightmare last night that my ex-girlfriend broke into my house and then kept breaking into my house, and I woke up so stressed. I can't imagine trying to prep during that time in my life.
No, definitely not. Yeah. And that's what I mean. Like, I prepped during the year I realize now was like the beginning of the end of my marriage, right? And then I also prepped while like quitting my job and starting coaching full time and having a relationship that wasn't for me and moving across the country. Like, why did I do that? I don't know, but like, now I know not to do that.
Yeah, I mean, thank God you went through it because you have lived to tell the tale and help other people. By the way, no one ever broke into my house. That was just a nightmare I had, just to be clear.
But it was probably a reality that could have happened.
I don't know if she watches. Okay, my next question is common client mistakes.
Like in what way?
Yeah, so let's say a more seasoned competitor, not someone who's like tracking their macros wrong, but like mistakes you'll see in prep, say it's like them not putting intensity into their cardio, like sandbagging their cardio, things like that.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, sandbagging their training is a big one. I see it more with bikini competitors because honestly, a lot of bikini girls are kind of like, they think that they like are in grave danger of getting too big, and that's just not true. Like, it's like, I would much rather put someone on stage, or if I was a bikini competitor, even if I was a bikini pro, I would much rather get on stage and be told you are too big than risk being too small accidentally because I didn't train hard enough. Because I can control the fact, like, if I'm training hard and I train so hard that I get too big as a bikini competitor, or even figure, like, if I get too big and I should, you know, they say, oh, you might want to go to women's physique or whatever, like, that's a much better and easier problem to fix than having to put on more size. Especially when it comes to like the off season, right? So say you do a show and say you do a national show, big deal, right? You're a seasoned competitor. Or you do a pro show and they say like, oh yeah, you're a little too dense or a little too hard or a little too big. So that's an easy fix. You can probably fix for the next show. Especially as a bikini competitor, because it's not like you're all of a sudden like a figure pro, right? It's probably just like a little bit too much. And so if you're told you're a little too big or dense or hard, then you can change some things about your training. You can change your peaking strategy and your water intake and some, little things like that. If drugs are involved, you can change drugs. Like, you can do a lot with a little bit of time and instantly come in correct. Whereas like if the judge says like, yeah, you really need the size, that's the biggest thing missing. Well, you can't fix that in a few weeks, generally. You have to take a full ass off season and live with the regret that you did not train hard enough. Like, imagine that. Wouldn't you rather live with like, I got too big by accident than live with the regret of not training hard enough?
What an ominous picture you paint.
I try my best. Well, like, that's what I think about when I'm training is like, I'm thinking about like, I can't be in second callouts. Like, my whole prep was thinking about not being in last callouts, right? Because that's what I had experienced as a figure pro up until last year. And so now I think about like the next level of that is like, I'm that close. I'm right there. So I just I can't lose time. I can't lose that. And so if someone like the mistake of not training hard enough or not training with enough intention or maybe not training with a a specific plan, like maybe you're on a team that gives out just kind of cookie cutter plans and you think that that's fine because they're a big name team or whatever, like you could be doing yourself a disservice because that plan is not for you because you need different stuff. So I think that's the biggest mistake, honestly, is like not training to the feedback and the criteria intentionally enough. And that could mean like all of those different things.
Yes.
But I think another mistake that is common is cutting out variety in food too soon and just like a lot in prep in general, because people kind of go on either a meal plan or a very bro type diet or very, very low food. And so they cut out a lot of variety, and that can really wreck your digestion. It can fuck with your hormones. It can mess with a lot of things. So like nutrient variety is really important in season and off season. So I think that's like an underlooked mistake as well.
Yeah. No, it totally is. I lost a period for like 26 weeks or something, like last time.
Yeah. Overlooking that stuff. It's like, yeah, most women lose their period in a prep, but it is possible, and it should be like the first priority to get it back as soon as possible after prep. And so if you think like, oh, it's just normal, it's fine, it'll come back on its own, like it's probably not fine. So you need to like be your own advocate for that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I was living for it, but then I heard that heart problems can come with it, and I was like, it's not worth that. It's not worth that. And okay, yeah, excellent points, and you will have to live with the regret if you do those things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm glad you said that.
Not worth
Okay,
it.
and that brings up another question that I've always had, which is, okay, say you have someone who is over-muscled, and they're over-muscled like just in the upper body. And then and everywhere else is fine. And then, I'm like thinking of I have specific athletes in mind, but I almost feel like I probably shouldn't say. But like, it seems like when you're over muscled in a certain area, you can't train that area anymore, whatever, that's fine. But then it seems like they will have trouble peaking when it comes time because they can't fill out enough to get that like bursting out of the skin look with muscle. Like you can't get that pop. So what's your take?
Yeah, that is, I think mostly that's a peaking issue that should be, especially if that's been like a feedback. That's generally an issue you're going to see more with pros or national level competitors.
Yeah.
Where it's like that small of a difference, right? So with that, I would say it comes down to a peaking issue. So what I would do in that situation is like, I'm going to probably bring back their training a little bit into their upper body leading up into a mock peak or just like a refeed type of test. Cause like you don't have to run a whole mock peak to know how someone could peak and to like write a good peaking program and like, or be like peak someone properly. You just have to see how they respond to food, water manipulation, sodium, stuff like that. So like giving them a little bit more time and running some mock peak scenarios and with refeeds and stuff like that and different training protocols, like that's what I would do in that situation. So then you're testing it before you actually bring them to stage when there's like pressure on, because shows are expensive to do. So you don't want to like mess that up, especially if you've already messed it up. Not that it's necessarily like one person's fault or another, but in that case, like it is the coach's fault. It's like it's their responsibility to make sure that like they're peaking that person properly. But at the end of the day, sometimes it's just like they need more time to kind of like have things balance out. And what if I've seen that happen, I think it's much more often like the case of they probably didn't do the right things with drugs, honestly.
Okay.
I think that plays a bigger role than some people recognize. But you know, it is, that's only speculation, right?
Yeah. So. Okay. And when you say that, do you mean like, I feel like I should rule out, but I'm still going to ask, like they put on too much muscle, like they put on too much muscle too fast, or like a peaking thing with drugs, or both?
Both. Yeah, it could totally be both. Like if you say like, you really want a bikini competitor to grow, and they have a short off season because they're a pro or whatever, or they're going to national shows like the following year, then like, someone might put them on a lot more drugs than they should technically have when it comes to like their health, just like in general, what is appropriate for a female. And then of course they grow really fast, but there also might be a discrepancy in their training, and like they're growing really fast and having a lot of fun training and being more aggressive in the gym, but then they're not really being as specific with their training. Or like, a great example of like someone who if they need to atrophy their upper body, and like they really need that, then like maybe they shouldn't be doing like hinges where they're holding the weight, because that's engaging a lot of their upper body. Maybe they need to do more like good mornings, for example, something like that, where they're not engaging their upper body at all. But in terms of like those big compound movements. But then when it comes to that person, like they still should have some blood flow there. So I don't think like completely taking off training from the upper body is the best answer. I think having like some very light pump work is a really good idea for that person. So at least they're still getting blood flow, but you're not damaging the tissue like you are when you're training really heavy with your upper body. So I think it's partially a training issue, also a peak, and it could potentially for that person be a drug and or peaking issue.
Okay. I mean, I feel like my catchphrase in this is just going to be like, that makes sense, but it's because you're really good at explaining stuff.
That's okay.
Okay. And this brings up another question I have with drugs. So, a big question I hear people asking is like, or someone says that their coach mentioned drugs or whatever, and then someone else will say, a coach should never say that to you, blah, blah. I don't know what school of thought I'm in exactly, but I do think that if a client comes to you and is like, I want to achieve this goal, and you look at them and you're like, you're probably not going to achieve that goal without some assistance, then I do think it's irresponsible or I guess honestly just unkind to make them think, yeah, we'll get to that goal, and then let them like do national show after national show. And like, I think that's worse than just being like, okay, I hear you. Maybe we should talk about this.
I think it's all in there, like in your delivery of it and like where you're coming from at it. So like if I'm getting a client who's like very new and they've never competed before, or maybe they've only competed a couple times, maybe only in natural federations or something like that, and they ask me like, can I achieve, can I look like Laura Lee and, but do it naturally? Can I look like Jen Dory? Can I look like, whoever? Can I do this naturally? I am going to look at their physique and answer them honestly, but I'm also going to like come from a point of like, I don't know what you're capable of because I haven't seen it yet. Mm-hmm. And so I've seen amazing transformations and people make incredible progress naturally. And so I very much believe that you can go very far naturally. There's plenty of, especially bikini pros who have done so naturally. Look at Daraja, yourself, like there's great examples out there. But that being said, like that is for not only the genetic elite, but the genetic elite that don't act like they're the genetic elite. It's for the people that are working their fucking asses off. And so sure, one could do it naturally, but that may or may not be you. And so it really instead of asking like, can I do this naturally? Let's just get to the first level to see if you can do this level naturally. And then we'll we'll reassess as we go throughout your journey. So like when I first started coaching competitors, I naturally got a lot of clients who were like, I want to go pro naturally, or like, I want to compete naturally because you're that way. You're a natural athlete. And so that was great for me, right? Because I like led by example in that way, especially as a figure pro who is natural and at the time. And then some of those athletes who maybe started with me back then, or maybe were just like friends or acquaintances who connected with me, have now since changed their minds and decided, I do want to try the enhanced side of things because now, maybe they've competed already naturally, or they've gone through their off season naturally for a long enough time that they've decided I think this is the better route for me because of my goals and the severity or the extremity of my goals and what I can see what my body has been capable of over this amount of time. And then there's some people that still choose to want to be natural, and they know, as long as they know that that's the playing field they're playing on, then we're all good. We can all like coexist and everything's fine. But yeah, it's just how you deliver it. And it's like, so I like to just give people the information. And so I say like, yeah, you can do a lot naturally. I don't know what you can do because I haven't seen it yet. So you have to show me, but I can give you my best because I've done it myself and I've done it with a lot of people. And I know that we can do a lot. And if you ever have questions about enhancements and if you want to go that route, I just ask that you do it with me, not, your boyfriend or that dude at the gym. Because like that's just unethical and I won't coach someone who does that. So
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And they're going to try to fuck you. So you need to watch out. You need to be careful. Okay. My next question is, okay, I have common training mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, what are they?
Common training mistakes. Obviously, not training is hard, but a lot of them too will just like be going through the motions and like not actually engaging the muscle. So a lot of my, most of my clients, I have tempo written into their program, and that's not written because I want to be an asshole, but it's because I
It
want
feels
to.
that way.
Yeah, I know. It trains you to slow down and actually get the full engagement, because time under tension allows us to recruit way more muscle fibers than we do if we're just like doing things really fast. Because I can do this all day long, especially with like heavyweight, lightweight, whatever, with, a bicep curl or a lat pull down, But like, so yeah, I'm technically like moving the weight. But if I'm just using momentum, then I'm not using all my muscle fibers. And if I'm not doing that, then I'm not really damaging all of the muscle fibers. So if I'm not damaging all of them, I'm not growing. Or I'm not stimulating the muscle so I maintain the muscle if I'm in prep, right?
Yeah.
So that would be the number one thing, is just like not paying attention enough to like actual engagement and not taking feedback when it's given to you. So if I give an athlete the same note every single week, it's not because I don't have anything else to say. It's because like that's still a problem that you still need to figure out.
Yeah. Yeah, so true. So, how do you explain, like, how would you paint a picture of training intensity? Because I didn't really understand it for a long time until I started listening to you when you were on Pro Physique Code. You and Evan really helped me out.
Good.
And then training with you personally, that also helped me. But it felt like this big, like, nebulous practice that I didn't really know how to get to whatever the level was that you guys were describing.
Of
So how
training
would you
intensity, you
paint a
mean?
picture? Yeah, how would you
Yeah.
paint a picture of training intensity? Like take us through a set or something.
Yeah. So if I'm looking at, say, I'm like thinking about a hack squat, where I'm getting on the hack squat, my goal is quads. I'm trying to focus on growing my quads, and I know what my quads need to look like on stage. I know that they're only going to get that way with squat patterns and quad leg extensions, right? Those are the movements, the types that are going to get me there. So the hack squat is the main movement of that workout, and it's going to like, it needs to get all the fibers firing, needs to damage the muscle. And if I did 2 plates per side for 8 reps as my last set, and I know that I could have gone for a few more reps, then doing 2 plates per side plus like 10 pounds isn't really going to give me a whole lot. Because I could probably, like, say I did it for 8 reps, like, I could probably do 2 plates per side plus 10 pounds for like 20 reps if I know I could have gone a little further. So it's about choosing something that scares you a little bit. So like my hack squat at my gym, 3 plates per side is heavy, but I've done it enough times that like now when I start on hack squat, I'm going from like, 1 plate per side to warm up. And then I go to 2, sometimes 2.5, because I know I have to get there eventually, like to over 3 plates per side. So anyway, like taking that taking you through that, going through like, all right, now 3 plates per side is on here. I know this is heavy. I got 6 reps last week on this weight for my top set. And my top set is supposed to be 8 to 10 reps in my program, but I only got 6 because it was too hard last week, and I failed at 6 or 7 or something like that. So then, say I use a spotter, like Austin is often, we're training together. So I either use a spotter or like just someone from the gym to help me through like some forced reps. Because once you hit a point where you cannot do any reps anymore, you're like at the bottom and you're trying to come up from the hole and you cannot. Like you are trying your hardest and you cannot come up, and they give you that little like push on the bar, and then that allows you to come up. Well, boom, you just did another set, or you just did another rep and you thought you couldn't. But all they did was give you like a little touch on the bar. So, okay, that means you were lying to yourself. So now you can do another rep. So maybe you do 3 or 4 more reps that are slightly assisted, and then they start getting like way more assisted. And so if they're doing more of the work than you are, then yeah, you need to be done. Okay. But if you don't have a spotter, it's like it's truly going until you fail. And that's what I think a lot of people have hard times with, is like they're either worried about how that looks or how that's going to feel or, you know, whatever. And it's like, well, if you're worried about someone else watching you train really fucking hard, then you don't really want to win. You don't really want to grow.
Yeah,
you want to please that person and make them feel more comfortable, or whatever it is you want them to feel subconsciously. I don't know what that is, but like failing is not a bad thing. It's a really good thing, and it means you're training really hard. So we can't always train every single little thing to failure. I think, you know, your warm-up sets, your first working sets, they don't necessarily need to go to failure, but like your top sets, absolutely, especially if you're in a phase where you should be training to failure. Now, there's some phases like health phases, holding phases, where like you might have, if your training program is like this, like RPE, intensity, or RIR written in. So like, you know, for me, for the last, you know, since I got off stage in November, my RPEs have been like, they were 8s for a while, and then they were 9s, and now I have a couple exercises that I get to go to failure on. But that's because I've been in like a health and holding phase, while I just like regain my cycle and stuff like that, because I like have had to manage my overall allostatic load and stuff like that. So yeah, when it comes to like 9 RPE though, that's technically 1 RIR. So that means at the end of your set, you feel like I'm not sure if I can do one more. So that's where you stop, where you're like, I'm pretty sure I could do one more, but I don't know. It's then if you were like thinking that and then you go for one more and you do it, then that's around there too. It could be close to failure, but it's not true failure. So yeah, that's kind of how I look at it. Hopefully that answered the question.
That totally answers the question. And yeah, I'll notice that I do that sometimes with like lateral raises I was doing yesterday. And I was going off of your plan. It said like 10 or something. And I get to 10. And in my head, I'm like, oh, this is so hard getting to 10. But then I sat down and I was like, but was it really? Or is it just because I knew 10 was coming? And so then I picked them right back up and I did 5 more. And I was like, okay, I was lying to myself. So yeah, I like that. I like how you described it. And then there's a little example from me. Okay. And then question. Okay. When you are taking on a new client and let's say they've done a show before, because I think that would be like, I feel like that would be the easiest way to start programming someone, seeing them at like their actual leanest, like first stage. How do you program your training for someone?
When I first start with them, I look at what they're currently, not necessarily the current program, because I don't really care what they were doing, but I do want to know generally, like, were you doing super high volume? Like, were your rep ranges like 15 to 20, 25? How many? But most of the time, like, if I know you were training 6-7 days a week, and then like I know your training was probably like on the higher volume side. That's typically what I see. So I look at their frequency of training, what they were training, that kind of thing, and just look at that and make sure, you know, just I keep that in mind. But then I also look at their weak points. That's like the first thing. If they're a competitor, like whether they just stepped off stage or they show, or I see their most recent stage shots from like last year or whatever, then I can just look at what they need to grow. And I look at their physique now in relation to that and see like, all right, this is where their body fat is probably distributed or how it's distributed. And then just kind of go from there in building it out. And building it out means just like, I like to start more on the balanced side and then kind of fine tune from there. I'll almost always start someone programming like with kind of a lower intensity. So like 8 RPE, because I don't want them training to failure if I get someone and they start training and I start looking at videos and their form is trash or they have terrible mobility. I don't want you training to failure. So once I get to know your body, that's where then I start looking at like how you're training and I add intensity, add intensifiers. So like you kind of have to earn those things. You earn program updates too. I don't just program update like every 8 weeks or, send a new program every 12 weeks or something. Like I look at your body, how it's responding to things. Like recently I had a girl who's, she competed last year. Yeah. Like the years gone by. She competed last year in bikini and she's switching to figure, or she told me like at the end of last year, she wants to switch to figure. And I was like, oh my God. But so for her, it's been cool watching her body change because her back has like really just come through. So like she's has a back, right? So
CrossFit
she has a
Games
posterior
backs
chain day.
were the first backs that inspired me.
Yeah. So she, so I took her posterior day, for example, which started with back training and ended with more hamstring glute training because she had, or hamstring training. And so had a few back exercises and then like hamstring curls, stiff leg deadlift, conventional deadlifts, not in that order, but so that's how her that day was set. So I switched it. I took out one of the back exercises and just took it out completely and then moved the other ones to the end of the workout and then started the workout with hamstring deadlifts, stuff like that. And then I added some more hamstring work as well because like her hamstrings are the main thing that are not responding super well. So we're trying to focus a little bit more on those, still keep focus on delts, quads as well, because she has glutes that look like a BBL. So so that's like an example of like watching someone respond to a program. I know her back is pretty good. Like, yeah, it can still grow. We still will grow it. But that's, something I saw Mark do with me, my coach, is like once he realized that my shoulders grow very easily, he kind of took the volume of them down and doesn't train them as much in my program or didn't train them as much in my program anymore because he knows if we like get to the end of off season or something and we need to like fill them back out again, he just like puts them back as a priority and like, boom, they're ready to go. Whereas like my quads, they need more work. My back needs more work. So they get the priority.
Okay. So is part of the reason that you moved her hamstrings to earlier in the workout also because like mentally she's at her most fresh when she gets to the
mentally and
gym?
Physically. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, very cool. And then is it, I guess, okay, well, so I guess if someone, are you ever looking at a physique and you're like, well, we have a lot of parts that need a lot of work, but I can't focus on everything, so we'll just have to go with this and then see what happens when the show comes? Or would then it just be a more balanced approach altogether if they have that many weak points?
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely starting with a more balanced approach. There's a very balanced way of programming. It's like, you think about the working sets per exercise or per body part, and you kind of keep it pretty even. But yeah, you have to really see, why there's such a benefit in having someone, for a long time before you start prep with them is because like, they're not growing in prep. Unless they're enhanced, but even then, like we can't do a ton of growth and we can't like add whole body parts into prep, right? So like you have to consider just how people grow in their off season, and then once you start prep, you don't know how the body fat is going to distribute unless you've worked with them before and you know how they get lean and stuff like that. So Especially if someone does have a lot of body fat to lose, it's a little harder. So we just kind of have to fuck around and find out. But like, for example, I have a client, Shay, who's in prep right now, and I recently changed some of her programming to just like really hit her glutes a little harder. She was already hitting glutes super hard, but I changed it again. And, because I want to really see how much we can like hit her glutes and get more blood flow and get more damage there, so that we can see if that helps things just like get more pronounced. It's not spot reducing. It's just focusing more on that training and that intensity and seeing how that plays out. So.
Okay. I'll be staying tuned on Shay's glutes then.
Yeah. And she's also a natural athlete too. So that's like.
Dog! Hi, dog!
Yeah.
So much to say!
Austin got home, so that's why they're barking. Hey, stop it.
So cute!
They know it's Austin.
Oh my God.
They calm down once they know it's not an intruder.
But they can't be too sure in the meantime.
No. Yeah, so she's also a natural athlete too, so it's like that's where you really get to see like what the body is going to do, because like she doesn't have the extra help of like having an anabolic help her maintain her muscle or build muscle into a show.
Okay, very cool. Hey, Austin!
It's my client, Sam. I'm on
Your voice sounds so muscular.
Oh, hi there. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt your podcast. I was trying to clear the room of the dogs. Here's my hand, like on Woody, like our Toy Story.
Okay, my next question. Okay, have you ever had to throw a Hail Mary and then it did or didn't work?
Oh, I saw that question and I wish I had more time to think about it, because I really like, I think something like a Hail Mary, I think of just like it's kind of reactive, and something that I'm not a super reactive person, but at the same time, it's something that I've learned to hone in on even more just in my career, is like not being reactive about things like, oh shit, something's not happening. Like, I'm just gonna throw this and hope that it works. And generally that's just like, it's kind of an emotional decision, right? Mm-hmm. So I try to be as unemotional as possible when I make decisions, especially when it comes to a client's body and their health and stuff like that. So that's one reason why like having a lot of time in your prep is so important, so that we can test things and test them like with like educated, right? Mm-hmm. So instead of being like, we're just gonna fuck around and hope this works, and I'm like, I'm gonna try this. It's an experiment, but an experiment has like a hypothesis and variables and like really important aspects to it that mean that like I'm predicting that this will happen, and it probably will because I know the person's body really well. But yeah, I don't think I really have. The closest thing I have is like, I've had some clients that have tested out, like had them do like a burger and fries or some sort of like cheat meal type situation in a prep. But even then I was doing that like 8 weeks out with them just to see how they responded, not doing it before the show for the first time of prep. That's where I think like that's kind of an emotional decision from the coach. If they're like, the client's not had a burger and fries all prep, but then they have them do it the night before the show. Like, I'm sorry. Why? Like,
that would stress me out.
Yeah.
We would have a negative reaction.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I guess I was thinking like if someone starts their period, or like for whatever reason, like something bodily happens and you're like, I gotta see if salt helps or something like that. I'm not a coach, obviously.
I mean, that's the thing is like if I do make a decision that's like a change from the original plan, it's still educated. It's still very like backed up with like the science behind like how I know the body works, right? So especially with something like salt or potassium or something like that, like if I see someone's holding on to a lot of water and I know they need to flush out some water, like, yeah, I'll add some sodium, or sorry, I'll add some potassium, but like it's not something where it's gonna, I wouldn't call it a Hail Mary. I would just call it a pivot, honestly, like just a shift, a change in plans.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, great. And then, okay, pounds above stage weight. This is a big question people have. Okay, here's what I have written. I have a little subparagraph. Some coaches are pretty. I don't know if this was like good writing or if these were just brainstorming. Okay, some coaches are pretty strict with how much their clients are allowed to gain in an improvement season. My understanding is that when you're earlier on in your training, more weight gain might be beneficial to put on tissue and be productive in the gym. Also productive, just, well, okay, anyway. Of course you do it slower, but it might prolong the process in prep later on. Later, when you're more muscular, you might be able to get away with not accruing as much excess weight in improvement season because you don't have much muscle to build. What's your take?
I think that's I think that's good. That's pretty spot on with like what we see. It's like there's still outliers on that. You know, there's people who already have a very low body fat set point when they start competing, and so they don't necessarily want or need or end up having to or accidentally putting on a ton of excess body fat. But there's also people with low body fat set points that do their first show, freak the hell out, and gain a bunch of body fat, and they're, you know, more overweight than they've ever been in their life. But that's because they didn't prepare for that reverse diet as well. Their mental health maybe wasn't in the best place, and so they don't have the control they should have for post show. But honestly, like, my experience is like everyone is so different, and so if we set the bar to if we set the standard at something like we don't even fully understand and we've never been there, then it's really hard to meet that standard. So you have to just like focus on your health and just doing your best, and know that that's going to look different every time you prep, every time you reverse, every time you do off season. I don't think that there should be a specific rule or weight, especially because every body is different in how their muscle and their weight transfers on stage. So someone who's 5'6", I'm 5'6", someone else who's 5'6" and is a figure competitor, like, we might still have very different stage weights and look very similar on stage, but that's just because like density looks different on like someone who's like in her 40s and like has really mature dense muscle but maybe like not as good shape as I do. Like, we're gonna look different, and maybe I'll do better because I have I have less muscle or less density but better shape, or maybe it's vice versa. Like, she has great muscle density and shape, right? So everyone is so different. Every body is different. So I think that's why we can't really force rules on ourselves or our athletes as coaches. We just have to like watch the body transform and do our best to like protect it. And a big part of that I've found in coaching is just really focusing and honing in on their health and making sure that, because if you're only motivated by the stage weight that you need to stay under, you're going to crash and burn. I've seen it happen many times. So the goal is more of just like, how do we stay as healthy as possible, mentally and physically? And if that's the focus, if like we're really focused on like keep making sure like our thyroid health is in point, our hormonal health, we get our period back, like then it's like it's a little less pressure because our health is like, it shows in our blood work. So like, yeah, you know you're going to feel like shit if you binge on a bunch of food, or you know you're going to, you know, feel like sluggish, or you're not going to perform well, or your digestion's going to be off if you have a free meal of stuff that you never eat. But even though it's like your reverse diet and your post show and your craving and everything like that, it's hard to control that when like the only goal is aesthetics. So
Yeah, the only rule you forced on me when we started training together was don't worry about a specific weight or exceeding a specific weight.
Yeah, because everyone's different.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do find that as people gain more maturity and like both mental maturity and muscle maturity, like they can hold a little lower weight. Also, the leaner you get in a prep, I've noticed that can help someone keep a lower body fat sometimes. But it all depends, honestly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, classic. It depends. I'm with you. Okay. My next question. Learning experiences and slash challenges with clients.
What was the word?
Learning experiences slash challenges. I
Challenges.
don't know why I'm struggling to say challenges. It does sound like I'm saying three separate
No,
words.
that's okay. Learning experiences and challenges with clients. Can you be more specific?
Yeah, do you have any examples of like you were working with a client and you were coaching them in a specific way and then something happened maybe just like in how their body responded or like their communication to you that you were like, "Oh, how it changed the way you work with other clients." Kind of like what you were talking about with
Mm,
earlier learning to ask like why when you
yeah.
realized you were losing clients.
Yeah. Like going back to that, just like asking for feedback more often. I remember like I had a client say in one of those feedback forums, like, just would be nice to like be asked how I'm feeling more often because I'm not always someone who like will tell you how I'm feeling. So I know if I'm asked, I'll feel more like heard. And so like that was a really good learning experience because like to me that client was like she was set. She didn't need me to ask her how she was feeling. She's just like a rock.
Yeah.
But she also is aware of her feelings and stuff like that. So she was aware enough to tell me that in the form. So I was like, yeah, I should really ask people how they're doing a little bit more often, especially even the people that I don't think need that. Because I
Yeah.
ask it of people who I know kind of need that, but I don't always ask it of everyone. So everyone's a different personality, so sometimes I don't always expect they need that.
Yeah.
Um, Other learning experiences are, getting blood work from people more often and really being a little harsher with them on like, hey, this is not, you're not in a good place to do this XYZ thing, right? I think that would probably be like the biggest learning experience I've gotten is just learning more about functional health and how much it affects things and how much it can hold us back from our goals, whether we're trying to grow or cut or prep or whatever. It's like that stuff needs to be taken care of because if it's not, then it's just going to bite you in the ass later.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. And the asking someone how they're feeling thing, my own projection totally came out because I'm like, that's so silly. Why would a coach have to ask how you're feeling? But then I remember when I started dating Nsima, if there was ever something going on, I was like, I had to tell him, you have to interrogate me to get to the bottom of what's going on because I'm not going to tell you because
Yeah.
it feels weird. But no, it's true. You have to, now I'm better about that. But yeah, so I love that your client said that. And that is a huge game changer. And everyone, the people who you worry about the least probably are the people who you should be asking the most. So
Yeah, that and it's just like even if it's not something that they need to share with me because like I'm not a therapist, right?
yeah,
But people do share a lot with me. Sometimes it's like I have to realize that I'm oftentimes like the person that listens to them the most in
hmm,
their whole life. I might be like the best part of their week because
yeah,
they're having a hard time or they don't have anyone in their life that they really feel like hears them, listens to them, cares for them, that kind of thing. Like that's really common, unfortunately,
yeah,
or it's at least a common thought with some people. And so just asking that can help people ask it more for themselves and really think about the answer. So again, going back to like the interviewing and like just psychological side of things is like if I don't ask, nobody else will, but they won't either, and so they just kind of get stuck in that place that they're in.
yeah. Yeah, and with therapy, there are certain like personality disorders and stuff that a lot of therapists
Mm-hmm.
don't like working with because it's
Yeah.
pretty taxing and like volatile, and that's just the nature of the disorder.
Yeah.
Um, but there's one therapist I love, Dr. Kirkonda, and he always says that you are like the last line of defense for a lot of these people. So if you, and not that you are as a coach, but just
No,
like a
yeah, I know what
general
you
thing
mean.
that I like, they're the last line of defense. So if you like throw your hands up and you're like, I'm not helping them, it's not like the government is going to step in and like start helping them. Like they are not going
No.
to ask for help again or
Yeah,
something bad can happen. So
exactly.
yeah. I love that you said that. Okay. Client experiences that you're most proud of.
Mm. so many, like, it's so cool coaching because you just see so much that people overcome in their lives. I have someone who is getting married and she is having to set a lot of hard boundaries with family. And so, like, just watching her kind of do the things that are going to make her day with her spouse like the most beautiful day, but making the hard decision to set the boundary with family, like, that was hard, but it's going to make her so much better. And, like, boundaries are something that we've worked a lot with, so, like, I know that I've been a big part of that. And, like, she tells me too. So things like,
And that's a big boundary. So that will also translate into like easier boundaries in her life that she needs to draw.
Oh yeah, I mean, she's set boundaries in so many ways, like with coworkers, with her partner, with like friends, and like she's just totally transformed in like just how she relates to people and herself.
You may say she's refined her strengths in setting
Yeah.
boundaries.
A client who I put through a gut protocol, and it was like, a little scary for me because I don't get the chance to do that a lot, but I have a lot of like education I've gotten about that in the last year or two. And so having that work so well and change her, not only her quality of life and her health, but like her mindset about food, her relationship to her body, stuff like that was huge. Getting wins on stage is obviously always amazing. Like I had Melissa get a bikini overall last year, and it was her first NPC show. And she had only ever done OCB, and she just had no idea that she would ever be capable of that. But then, like, at the same time, like, she just posted on her story the other day, because we talked about it in her check-in, like, her seeing other wins in her life, like how her daughter is, like, super fearless. And she's like, I was never like that at my age. And I was like, well, she's like that because you're like that now. Because, like, you conquer your fears all the time now, and you're, like, a badass single mom who just bought her own house and got on stage. And, like, it's not surprising your daughter is a badass now. Like, and she
Shout
was
out
like,
Melissa.
oh, wow, I didn't think about it that way,
Yeah.
So, yeah, just, like, I don't know. There's so many I could go on, but like just seeing people truly change their lives, whether it's like the experience they got on stage, that's amazing, but seeing them change their lives in other ways that will affect them forever.
Yeah. Yeah, not to be cheesy, but bodybuilding is so much more than, getting on stage, obviously, and like it being an aesthetic thing.
Yeah.
So that makes me so happy. And so happy for you, going to bed so fulfilled every night. That feels good.
Anytime I get stressed about work, I really just like, I think about those things, and I just like, I open the next check-in and I'm like, oh, wow, like, never mind. I guess I can't be sad or stressed.
Never mind. I'm not going to retire. I can't stop helping people. Okay. And then, okay. Well, this is kind of similar client stories that affirmed your belief in yourself as a coach / that affirmed you were on the right path. Would you?
Yeah. It's that same stuff. It's like just people watching people like transform and also just like become more independent too. That's a big one, because a lot of clients like I've had really do depend on me for a lot. And so like watching people kind of come out of that and grow up a little bit is really cool to see.
That's so cool. Oh my God. Okay. And then most difficult part about being a coach. And we were kind of talking before this, like, there's a lot of emotional investment.
Yeah, there's a lot of emotional investment in it. So, like, sometimes at the end of a check-in day, I'm just like, that was a lot, and I don't want to talk to anybody. I'm emotionally drained. And it's not because the clients did anything wrong. It's just because, like, that's my job. And so I don't look at it as, like, I wish my clients weren't like this and didn't need my help. It's more like, this is, like, this is a big responsibility. And, like, I just, like, I hold that, and I'm really grateful for it because it's part of what makes me me. And it's part of what helps me help people. And I wouldn't be able to help more people if I wasn't doing this, and therefore wasn't feeling this way. So, I used to get a lot more burnt out with coaching, like in my first couple years. And it was just because I wasn't aligned with what I wasn't aligned. And so like 2024 was a big year of alignment for me because it was my first full year in business as Refined Strength. And I really noticed just like how my voice changed and how my confidence changed from going from working for a company, which was really great for me in the beginning, but over time did not serve me anymore and kind of worked against me at the end. And so really seeing myself grow out of that first and then come on, go out on my own, and then be able to just like coach how I want to coach, talk how I want to talk, post how I want to post, say whatever I want to say. And like not only all the good things that happen about that or through that and with that, but also knowing like what is like having the grave responsibility of what that means. Because obviously we know like cancel culture is really high, you know, it's out there. And so like you could say anything. Yeah.
You talking about it like you're like the boogeyman. It's under your bed. It's in your cabinets.
Might get you canceled. Like someone's gonna put something you say out there.
Yeah.
And I honestly used to be more scared of that. Because I would see it, right?
For sure.
But then I just realized like I don't have to worry about that because I believe everything I say and I know that I'm always acting through my values. And before I started on my own, I knew I had to constantly like work outside of my values. And that was really hard for me and it affected my coaching and my decision making and my confidence in myself. So once I got to let go of that and just fully be on my own and acting through my values, like everything changed. And yeah, I get like overwhelmed sometimes, but like I truly, every time I get overwhelmed, I just flip it into gratitude and I just remind myself like you have this overwhelming feeling because you wanted this, like you wanted a business, bitch, like just take it and eat it, right? So yeah, that's like the worst part of it, but it's actually not because like it reminds me of like what I've built.
It's like in a job interview where they say, "What are your weaknesses?" and you're like, "My weakness is probably that I work too much around the clock."
If I'm really saying, okay, the worst part is clients who don't see and will not work towards their own potential. Clients who like keep showing up with the same problems, they complain but they're not actually doing the work. So that's probably the worst part is because like I can say anything I want and I can give them my very best and they will still be like they'll always have some reason that they can't do it.
Yeah, they are sadness embodied from inside out.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that would be annoying. I agree. Okay. And then I have two more questions in this section, but are you getting fatigued?
I do have. I got 30 minutes left. I'll do that. Okay.
Okay. The last two sections are short, so honestly, okay. Well, maybe that was a lie. Okay. Okay. And then, okay, let's say, okay, your client Jordan asked a question: vetting process when taking on a client.
Oh, good. Vetting process. I do ask good, like, I feel like I ask questions on the call, and some of my questions on, like, my application are part of the vetting process as well. So, like, I ask someone, like, are you really ready to change your life and in, like, effort to go after your goals? And the options are, like, hell yes, I am, and I'm not sure. And so that's something that I will bring up. If I'm getting someone really resistant to something I'm saying in a call, when it comes to like going back to the example I gave of a call yesterday of like me giving this person a timeline and saying like your timeline doesn't really align with what's realistic and safe and healthy for your body, but here's my timeline based on my experience and my ethics. What do you think about that? And it was still the main objection that she had and like why she needed to think about coaching. And so like getting off that call, I was like, well, I won't be upset if she doesn't sign up because I know that it's only because she is unrealistic. And so I don't want to work with an unrealistic client. Another part of the vetting process I would say now is that I no longer will bring someone on for monthly coaching that they can cancel at any time. I did add a 6-month agreement period to my coaching because I don't want to work with anybody who's not willing to invest in me and themselves and their work. So like if you want to sign up with a coach and you want to be able to cancel within 1 or 2 months, that means you don't even believe in yourself enough. You don't believe in your own ability to adhere to a plan 100%, and therefore, like, you want to be able to get out as soon as you can, as soon as you're not seeing the progress you want. I don't want to work with that person. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's totally like probably the biggest part of my vetting process that I've brought on recently. And it was a little like hard to pitch to people at first, but then I was like, you know what? This is going to protect me from getting the most out of my time and not wasting my time on people who are not ready to like work and be a good client.
Yeah. And I mean, most coaching companies seem to operate that way anyway. So it's not like that big of an ask.
I always thought that it was like kind of icky to have an agreement period. And I convinced myself of that. And then I had a friend who's also a coach who I really relate to a lot. And she was like, she posed it to me and I was like, yeah, you're right. I should do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, part of it is capitalism and the other part of it is that like people do need to like, if somebody is financially invested, they're more likely to stick to it. So
yeah, and like that's true. That's very much the case. And I also see it as just like their personal investment in their work and their confidence in themselves too.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Okay, so we are moving on to your own competing. Okay. Let me choose my questions. So, okay. Your goal setting and its progression, because you won at NPC Nationals when you were undersized, but you still had everything else. So you still won. And then you have said you got your ass handed to you for a couple pro seasons. And then, and then this past season you were like, I don't want to get last place. So, and now you have bigger goals. So like, how do you set these goals for yourself?
Yeah. So,
and then what makes you believe in the next goal, that it's achievable?
Yeah, I think it's funny. I thought about that a lot when I was in prep this year, starting to see like, oh shit, this is going to be good. Because I started realizing like, wow, I went through so much loss and just kept going. Like, that's crazy because most people don't do that.
Yeah, and resilience.
Like I've seen a lot of people get last place at a show, whether it's an NPC show or nationals or pro show, and they just like fall apart and their whole life falls apart. They fall off the face of the earth. That just like shit goes down. Their whole world is ending. And I think it goes back to when I first started competing and I had already done 1 or 2 shows and I was about to start prep for my season where I went pro. And I was talking to a friend who at the time, she had just retired from competing. And she had never, she had gotten very close to a pro card, but never actually gotten it in figure. And I remember having this conversation with her, and she was like a year or 2 post-show into her retired life. And it was clear that she still very much identified with her self-worth still being tied up in bodybuilding and not getting that pro card. Not, she said something like, it was very like black and white, like you're never going to be able to see your body a different way now that you've competed. Like you're never going to be able to see your body not shredded or something like that. Like once you've been shredded, you never unsee that. So you always know that that's there and that's always going to be in your head. And I just like remember listening to her and talking, and I'm just like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to ever tie my worth or my identity so tightly into bodybuilding that I am that unhappy with myself and who I am and what I look like. Mm-hmm. And so there were mistakes made. There were things that I wish I could have done better with. I blew up in an off season a few times. Like so many things have happened since then that I regret or that I just like know I could have done better at, but every single one has been a learning experience. And I can always look back at like what my responsibility is, which is like I have to take responsibility and take accountability for my actions and my choices which, you know, is also comes down to my coach, right? I chose to stay with the wrong coach for too long after we were past our point of success, right? So like, yeah, he could have done better with me as a coach in my pro season as an athlete, but he didn't, and that was on me. Like, sure, I could say it's on him, but it's really on me. And so, because like at the end of the day, most coaches are not going to push away an athlete. And so for me, the goal of going pro, I set it because like I was so new, and I was like, well, I just got third at Emerald Cup, and I'm so excited, and I did so naturally. And they said the only reason I didn't get first is because my tan sucked, and I was like, great. So I know that like there's easy things for me to change. And so he was like, I think you could try to go pro, so let's try to go to nationals next year. So we did that. And then after that, it's like, you know, we were both surprised. Like, it was a really joyous moment of going pro, and we knew that like I needed time off, so I took, you know, a year and a half or so off. And then that's where, like, you know, once I started getting close to the pro debut and then past it in that season, I was like, man, like I just need to push harder. I just need to push harder. So then the goal was just like to improve, because I knew I wasn't big enough to like be really competitive as a pro, but I wanted to just improve and just me against me. And then the following season was more of like, at the time, kind of a redemption season, because I realized my 2019 season was very much like kind of infected by my toxic marriage. And so I was out of that. I was like, well, now it's my time. I'm not as stressed anymore. But really, I had traded a lot of stress, and I just had new stressors that I hadn't fully like settled into yet. I hadn't fully settled into myself and who I was. But I was on my way. I was doing that because it was 2021. But so with 2021, that's where like I realized like, all right, I knew at that time, honestly, at the beginning of that season, I knew that would be my last season with that coach. And so, which now looking back, just like if you're in a relationship that you knew that was going to end soon, you should just end it now, right?
Yeah.
But at the time I was like, but I'm going to give it one more chance. I wanted to do the natural Ben Weider pro show, and so that I felt like I owed it to that coach to like stay with him for that. And so I did. And the goal after that was like, I got to get my shit straight. I got to really take this seriously if I want to take it seriously. And so I changed everything. And I just said like, and I went back to like, I feel like I kind of had a rebirth, and I decided like, I'm going to go back to not knowing anything and not caring about what I've done and everything. Like, obviously I respect my past and who I am, but like, I'm going to hire a coach that knows way more than me. Because at that time I realized like, I know more than my coach. And that was hard to realize. And so I hired Mark, and I told him like, my goal is to get top 10 at a pro show. I just don't want to be last. And so I felt like that was reasonable. And I also asked him, is that reasonable? Or am I just kidding myself? I know I've been natural. I know I'm hiring you to help me be enhanced. Like, I need someone who's going to take care of me, safety and health wise, but also who's going to lead me to success, and who I can like learn from. And he ended up being like the best person for that, honestly. And so like through that time, I just like kept that goal. Like, I just want to get top 10. I just want to get top 10. And when I got top 10, I didn't even believe it. I was like, what? Like, I was just sure, because it was like the first time back on stage in 3 years. And the last time I was on stage, every time I was on stage as a pro, I had never heard my number getting called until it was the last call out.
Yeah.
And so I just like, I was back in that place on stage, and I was just thinking like, I'm not going to get called. Like, and I did. And so it was really cool. And obviously like that put me on a high, and I was like, well, I really got to I already knew I wanted to do Texas. So I did that. And I just like, the goal was to improve. I got the feedback. The judge said like, yeah, definitely do the show, do another show, and like have fun. But like when you do your off season, like grow in your lats and your quads, and you'll be good. And so then getting third at Texas State was interesting, because like I had never thought about what it would feel like to be in a confirmation round. And so
With Miss Masters Olympia, Jessica Reyes-Padilla.
Yeah, with Jessica and with Dee, and I forget the other girl's name. She's newer. I think her name is Natalie. I think she's like Eastern European. But anyway, to be up there with two Olympians, one of which is second at the Olympia, and Miss Masters Olympia, that just like really solidified that like I've been on the right path. And everything up until this point has been the right choice because this is why I'm here. And, you know, everything down to the mindset I have about bodybuilding, to how I eat, even though it might be different from other bodybuilders, to how I do cardio, to how I track my steps. Like, everything is how it should be because I am who I am, and that is why I am there. And so I can't lose now. Mm-hmm. And so that was like, now I set the goal like, well, I got third. I know I can win a fucking show. And so,
yes!
Yeah, that it's just like leveling up with a goal. Like, I would have loved to make the goal of like, I want to go to the Olympia. And obviously that is the goal. And I had that in my head as a new pro, but I couldn't see it. And so that's the point I think I'm making in goal setting is that like, you have to be able to see it. And sometimes you just, in order to see it, you have to get closer to it first. So you can't really set the goal of going to the Olympia if you've never even stepped on a pro stage or if you've never even gotten like second call outs at a pro show. So then you have to like, let's just work there. And that's the problem with a lot of competitors is like they will set the goal right out the gate. Like, I want to become a bikini pro or a figure pro, but like they've never even followed a meal plan. They've only been working out 1 year. So like, let's set a smaller goal first. It's okay to have the stretch goal, but like, you don't even know what you're in for if you've never even competed before. You may not even like it that much yet. So
yeah, you've never tracked a macro. It's important. Those little things build that like self-belief, so that you can eventually get to the main goal. Mm-hmm. You're so right. And then, okay, so I have a question, which is, did you have strategies for the shows you picked? Or was it just like, our goal is to get top 10, it doesn't really matter what show that is? Or are you like, I'm trying to get in front of these judges so I can get in front of all these judges by the end of 3 shows or something?
We did not have that type of strategy. It was more just like, because again, going to that, like, I just wanted to get on stage again at a good show. And like at a well-run show in a city that would be good to travel to. Like, I wasn't about to plan my season around like Romania, right? Yeah. So I planned when we started our season, we had like the target time range of shows, which was like October through December, basically. So my goal was like, okay, my original goal was Legions because that was like around that time. And then when Mark saw me in person, like at, I think 11 weeks out from the show I did do, Hurricane, he was just saying 11 weeks out. And I was like, okay, I guess Legions is out. Which was like sad because I really wanted to do Legions, but at the end of the day, it was the right choice. So, and I was like, I let him drive that decision. So, but I did tell him that like, no matter what happens, I want to do Texas State because that one was important to me because I'd done it before. It's in my hometown, not my hometown, but like, you know what I mean? It's
where
in
Texas.
I live. I can drive. I can have my people there with me and my dogs and my espresso machine. So like, so those things were important. And yeah, and I also wanted to see that side by side of just like sad, small, poorly peaked, not lean enough Rachel with no boobs to to like
to huge knockers, bigger than my not
huge
as
knockers, huge upgrade of in every way, not just the boobs. So yeah,
it's not all about the boobs, but it is important to us.
But I did wear the same suit, and my boobs looked great in the new suit.
Yes. Love a boob moment. I am with you. Okay, I have one more question, and then I have 3 listener submitted questions, which are all quick. Okay, my question: what's next? / will you and Austin do a show together?
Yeah, we'd love to. So Next, Austin competes. He's competing at the Texas Pro, the amateur show, which is Texas Classic in August. So he started his prep like 2 weeks ago.
Go off, Austin.
We're very excited for him. And he hasn't prepped since 2021 as well. So it's like been a long time off. And before we started dating, he had been kind of like mentally retired from bodybuilding. And then we started hanging out and dating, and he just like kind of reinvigorated himself for bodybuilding and got back into it. And so I'm really excited for him.
Me too.
And then he's going to go to North Americans and get his pro card. So
okay,
if for some reason that doesn't happen, he'll probably go to nationals at the end of the year. But he's gonna get it. So, and he's an open bodybuilder because he's a heavyweight. So, or super heavy, yeah. So he's gonna get that.
Yeah, don't belittle him literally.
Huh?
I said don't belittle him literally.
I know. I'm so sorry. But yeah, he is currently like 250 something, 260, something like that. Wow. But like his body is so different from the last time he was on stage. So I'm excited for him. He's coached by the same coach, Mark. And then basically like his world with bodybuilding is different than mine. Mine is very much a part of my career. His is more of like a hobby and a lifestyle. And because he's a real estate agent, shout out if anyone needs help finding a home, we got you.
Most muscular realtor.
So the goal for him is just to like be at his best and like achieve greatness, right? Whereas my goal is like it's the same, but like I'm gonna get to the Olympia. Yeah. So his goal after he turns pro is like he's not against prepping again like the following year and like kind of doing it more for fun as a pro and then competing at the same show as me if we can find one on the good timeline that has both. So that's what we would love to do, but yeah, just kind of we'll see how it all bangs out. If he's like on some building project and doing too much where he like is focused on that and can't prep next year, then like that's better anyway. So it's not a big deal if that's the case.
Okay, cool. And then are you wanting to compete again this year or we're taking more time?
Yeah, so I'm taking all of this year off. Right now I'm in a health phase and I'm just like ready to grow. But I have grown quite a bit during this phase. So it's been nice to just like get stronger, have fun, enjoy some body fat, enjoy some curves, some energy. But the goal is just to grow this year. And then my thought is getting ready to start prep at the end of the year for early 2026 shows so that I can get so I can do however many I need, get a qualification.
Okay,
for
cool.
2026.
I'm so excited. Okay. Okay, listener submitted questions. Joanna, my friend Joanna at the gym, she is training to do nationals and figure this year. Share your top 3 playlists for leg day pump.
Oh, I'm the worst person to ask this because you are not going to get the best, like the most, it's just surprising. So
it's Alanis Morissette.
No, it's very based on my mood and like but yeah, so my go-to types of playlists. So for leg day, generally it's like 90s and 2000s punk, pop, emo music. I listen to a lot of that. Or maybe a little bit more on like some of that and a little bit of rock, like that kind of thing. Sometimes Spotify gets a little crazy and adds some things that don't belong in a playlist, right?
Yeah.
So that's one. And then another leg day type playlist I might listen to is like some, sometimes I used to do this a lot more. I don't know why. I'm just like never I'm not gravitated towards like rap and hip hop as much as I used to be, but I used to listen to that a lot more. But I do listen to a lot of like cha-cha-cha music. So like Latin cha-cha music. I don't know why. It just like gets me in the mood for legs. And it
you're a dancer.
Yeah, I used to dance Latin dance. So like cha-cha, salsa, bachata. So so yeah, I just really like that. So I'll listen to that mostly on like my deadlift days, especially days like I want to go really slow on things and tempo. Upper body days and sometimes lower body, I'll listen to some like, I don't know what to really call it, but like plume or like Enzo, like that type of music.
Yeah.
Music that I like to trip mushrooms to, like that kind of
Love.
thing. So I'll listen to some of that, but mostly I'll listen to that on an upper body day, and then sometimes I'll listen to like This Is Russ playlist on upper body.
Oh, love Russ. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Usually
great
that's a
song.
day that I'm like getting a little high before training.
Yeah, for sure.
Won't
That's
lie.
how I made it through my entire last prep.
Yeah.
And Joanna, if you're wondering, my favorite is Lemon, the drag queen, and my favorite song by her right now is Thirst Trap, and also Dead Last and Wish I Were You, or Wish You Were Me, whatever it is. Great songs. You must listen. Okay, Fioravante asks, how does it feel coming this far with everything you do and love?
It feels great. I'm like really happy. And like life is hard a lot, but it's not so hard that I think it's bad or like I'm crying about it. Like life is hard because I made it hard and like I wouldn't have it any other way.
Love it. And then final question is from Claire. She says, I first saw Rachel on the Pro Physique blog on YouTube when it started. I know you weren't happy with your stage. I don't know why I said
I
this.
didn't even know there was a blog. Sorry.
I know. Maybe she meant blog. I know you said you weren't happy with your stage conditioning then, and you achieved so much since then. What would you say created the biggest difference for your conditioning now on stage compared to then?
Aligning myself with the right people. So from my coach to my friends to the types of clients I work with to my partner, like everything, it's alignment. And it's just like having you, and I think as for a competitor, like the coach is so important, and you don't owe a coach that is not doing you the right service, who is not helping you win, you don't owe them anything. And I think that's a big thing I've watched with a lot of people who stay with a coach that is not great for them, is they only stay there because they feel beholden to them. And that is a problem, that the coach is manipulating them. And I like, no one wants to hear that, but that is like, I see it a lot where someone is like, oh, I feel really bad. Like he's been so good to me, or she's been so good to me. And oftentimes they are getting free coaching and they think that that is why they should stay. And that's just evidence that they are afraid to lose you. If they are giving you free coaching and they're not delivering their coaching services as best they can. So like, don't ever be afraid of like making the cut when it comes to your coach, your partner, your friends, like anybody who is not making your life better in some way. Why do you keep trying to give to them? So that would be the number one thing, because like everything I had, the people that I had in my life in those times when I was not getting the results that I wanted, most of them are not here anymore. And my life is exponentially better, and it was really hard cutting some people off. I had a conversation with a friend today about just like what makes a real friend. It's someone who like adds to your life, who supports your dreams, supports your vision, and like you can have real conversations with, not just someone who's like conveniently there and wants to be your fan. I think I confused that a lot back then for just like people that were not really my people, or people that were just there and like it was good enough. It's just like, you don't have to just settle for good enough. You can actually ask for greatness, and you can achieve that if you have the right people with you.
Yeah. Well, what a great note to end on. Thank you, Claire, for that question, because you just wrapped this up. So great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
Yes,
I am
thank
so
you.
grateful you came on here. And I'm like, most recent things that we talked about, I'm excited for Austin this year to get his pro card. I'm excited for you. And thank you so much. I just think the world of you, and it's such a pleasure getting to talk to you.
Yeah, it was awesome getting to talk to you too. And I feel the same way, girl. I'm excited for this, for your podcast, and just like for what you're doing in grad school. And hopefully, whenever you decide to get back into it and get on.
I know, I have like an itchy trigger finger. I'm like, San Francisco State, get back to me. They're the latest one. They'll get back to me in May.
Yeah. All right. Well,
thank you. Bye. Thanks, everyone. Oh, end.